Hello and welcome to Current Affairs on JTV. Today my guest is Amir Ohana, a lawyer, former Shin Bet intelligence official and currently a Likud member of the Knesset. Amir, delighted you've joined us on this sunny day.
Thank you so much for having me.
A real pleasure. You've been fairly interestingly spoken on the peace process and in terms of what you see. Judea, Samaria, the West Bank, you see as being inherently connected to Judaism and the Jewish presence in the land. Can it be shared with the Arab presence in the land?
Of course, there is no other choice. It could be shared.
But how does that work?
Sorry?
How does that work?
Well, when I walk in Judea and Samaria and I walk in those factories that others want to BDS, want to boycott, when I take a look, I see Jews and Arabs working together, having lunch together, sharing recipes together, living together rather than killing each other. This is coexistence, and this is the only future that we have on the land of Israel, learning how to live together rather than kill each other.
Sure, but they're not voting together, are they?
Oh, they are voting for the Palestinian Authority because they live under the Palestinian Authority's education system, under the Palestinian Authority police system, justice system, etc., etc., etc. So they are voting for the Palestinian parliament, and the Israelis vote for the Israeli parliament.
Okay, but that's
which is the result of the Oslo agreements of 1993.
Yes, but you will surely accept that that is not where the Palestinians want to end up. They don't want to end up being in charge of 50% of what normal countries or nations are in charge of. They want to be in charge of 100% of it.
Well, unfortunately, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, aka PLO, was founded in 1964. In 1964, there was not a single Jew or a single Israeli soldier on Judea and Samaria. So therefore, I would have to ask, what did they want to liberate Palestine from? Or rather, should we say, what is Palestine? And I'm sorry to say that in the eyes of the vast majority, or anyway, the influential majority of the other side, we're not talking about Ma'ale Shomron and Otniel and those factories in Judea and Samaria. We are really talking about Yafo and Akko and Tzfat and Haifa and everything that we consider as the state of Israel. Now, my colleagues from the left may say, okay, that was back in 1964, but this is 2016. They moved ahead. Move ahead yourself. And I am saying, whenever you hear in every European campus, American campus, in Israeli campuses, the pro-Palestinian demonstration, you would still hear the same old slogan. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Now, you know the map. Where does it put us? So I am sorry to say, at this time, we have no partner for peace. Definitely not Hamas. We would all agree about that. But also not the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization.
And yet, despite that, the status quo clearly isn't tenable. I mean, you're saying no two-state solution now because there's no partner for peace, no sort of one-state solution because that's not the solution either. Let's keep it as it is. But as you know, internationally, that's not an option. People around the world will not accept that, and pressure will keep on increasing on Israel.
That's right. This is why we will
So what's the answer?
This is why we will have to do our best to persuade and to convince and to show the truth for what it is to the international political community. And this is what I'm trying to do when I meet political leaders, such as this morning. And this is what I try to do elsewhere, in America, in Australia, and other European countries.
So your solution, just so I understand this, is to get the world to understand...
First of all, I'm not talking in terms of solutionism.
Right.
We have like a syndrome of solutionism. We think every problem we just do X, Y, and we can solve the problem. We are adults. We know that sometimes in life there are problems that we simply cannot solve. And this is what we are facing right at this time.
You think it can't be solved. Other people think it can be, though.
Who thinks that? If the Palestinians would want to solve the problem, they would want to raise a state. They had 7 options in the last 30 years.
I'm not saying they want to solve it. I'm saying that the international community thinks it can solve it.
Well, I think they're mistaken, and this is what I'm trying to show them. Because if the conflict would have begun in 1967, they might have a case. But it began much sooner. In just one weekend of August of 1929, 133 Jews were slaughtered and butchered and killed by their Arab neighbors. Why was that? Was it the occupation that did not exist? Was it the establishment of the State of Israel that did not exist? What was it? What was it for 100 years that we are facing terror? Way before 1967. The Fedayuns, the armies of the Arab countries tried to demolish the State of Israel. Why is that? It's certainly not the occupation, as they call it, of 1967, or the liberation of Judea and Samaria. Can you imagine that? Ha'am Yehudi, the Jewish people, is an occupier of a land that called for thousands of years Yehuda, Judah. Can you imagine that?
I can imagine it, and I also know that obviously the historical case is one thing, but we also deal with the reality of what international, public opinion is on this. And yes, you could go down the route of trying to explain this to people, and it's sensible, but that's been tried. It's been tried time and time again.
Unfortunately, not for the last 20 years. When we said in 1993 that we are going to the Oslo agreements, which was really what it meant is we import thousands of terrorists headed by Arafat that were haunted in Tunisia and wherever they were, and give them guns and territories and uniforms and say, okay, you deal with terror without Bagatz and without B'Tselem, as the Prime Minister back then said, and it literally exploded to our face. Did you know that before 1993 we didn't have even one suicide bomber in the state of Israel? Not one. Ever since, we have known hundreds of them. Clearly, this is not the path for peace. It's the path for more violence and more bloodshed. Once the Arabs accept our existence on the land of Israel, once they accept that we are not like the British before us and like the Ottomans before them, we're not just a temporarily thing there, but we came back to our homes. Once they understand that, we can talk about peace, and not a moment sooner.
Amir, thank you for your time today. It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you all for joining us as well. We'll see you again soon for another episode of Current Affairs on JTV.